Hello and welcome to Friday Night Games. I'm your host, JComX. Man, are we still doing Game & Watch episodes? How many of these things are there anyways? Holy I need to liven things up around here. Keep you guys coming back for more. Well, I've already done the evil clone shtick. Where do you even go from there? Well, what did the Game & Watch do at this point? What secrets are you hiding? Tell me! Come on, I know you've got them. Open up! Of course! There we go. A splash of color, and now we're ready to talk about the tabletop and panorama Game & Watches. Finally! After 25 Game & Watches, it's about time we got some color around here. But before we jump into this episode, if you aren't caught up, you should check out my prior Game & Watch videos first. I'll be here when you get back. So at this point, Nintendo is going on 3 years of the Game & Watch. The last few games, Greenhouse, Donkey Kong 2, and Mario Bros, were keeping sales strong, but R&D1 decided to mix up the formula big time. A couple years prior, Nintendo had licensed its most successful IP, Donkey Kong, to a company called Coleco for them to sell as part of their mini tabletop arcades. These included the likes of Pac-Man, Galaxian, and Frogger. Those sold like gangbusters, becoming incredibly popular. Interestingly, Nintendo had already filed a patent for their own mini tabletop arcade design back before the multi-screen series, and seeing how successful Coleco's games were selling, they probably decided to cut out the middleman and just make their own. Nintendo ditched their prior portable and low-key design and went full throttle in the opposite direction. Compared to the previous Game & Watches, these things are huge, way bigger than I was expecting. Aside from this cool arcade design, the real claim to fame for the tabletop series was the addition of color. Instead of having monochrome characters with some colored background elements, these games have full color characters and backgrounds, and they look much more like Nintendo's arcade games at that time. Even more so than Coleco's arcades, I think the tabletop Game & Watch was probably the closest you could get to having a portable Nintendo arcade experience at that time. So what's the deal anyways? These LCDs can't produce color on their own, these are still using the same technology as the other Game & Watches. Well, once again, R&D1 demonstrates their problem-solving creativity. Your typical Game & Watch uses a polarizer to black out certain sections of the LCD screen, which, when electrified, make it look like little characters are moving around. By flipping the polarizers around, however, they create the opposite effect. Afterward, color is added to the translucent parts and voila! Color characters. Only problem is, in order for this method to work, there needs to be a light source behind it, since these LCDs can't produce light on their own. At the time, making a backlight was way too expensive to be affordable, so R&D1 solved this by embedding the LCD into the top of the device beneath a window, allowing light to pass through. That means that whatever light source you're using to play the game is actually the light that allows you to see the game. The LCD is then reflected off of a mirror, producing the final image. That's freaking nuts! It's a perfect demonstration of Gunpei Yokoi's design philosophy of using withered technology to make something new and innovative. This also means that R&D1 had to design the LCDs as mirrored images and program the inputs in reverse. Sounds like a pain in the ass. Each model includes a single game with 2 modes, Game A, Classic Mode, and the more difficult version, Game B. Staying true to the Game & Watch name, they also have a time and alarm feature. But you tell me what kind of sick freak is gonna use this like an actual clock?
What?
Ew! I love this design. Seeing it on camera does not do it justice. It's a little big, but it really feels like you're playing a portable arcade. Especially for the time, this would have been such a cool experience, and in my opinion, it still holds up. So enough with the design, we're here for the games! Since Nintendo already licensed out the original Donkey Kong game to Coleco for their own mini arcades, they decided to launch with 2 games featuring their other golden boys, Mario's Cement Factory and Donkey Kong Jr. Mario's Cement Factory. We talked about this one in my last video, but this version actually came out 2 months earlier, and in my opinion is a much better version. I mean, ultimately it's the exact same game, but my main issue with the new widescreen version was that it started out so slow. If you lost, it took forever for the game to get going again. But in this version, the game starts out and Before you know it, Luigi is in mortal danger and I've got to save him from an early grave. Come to think of it, is this even Luigi? I mean, I assumed it was because of the green clothes, but there's two of these guys, and neither of them has a mustache. The manual only refers to these guys as truck driver. This is like the mini Donkey Kong fiasco all over again. Is it Donkey Kong Jr. or mini Donkey Kong? Come on already! Whatever, I still say this is Luigi. If there can be two Marios, then there can be two Luigis. Anyway, Luigi controversy aside, the other thing this version has over the new widescreen version is the character and background art. Of course, the new widescreen version is meant to be a more simplified portable version of the game, so it's really not fair to compare. But here, Mario's just so much more expressive and he looks like Mario. On top of that, the background in this version is more colorful and it feels more like the classic Donkey Kong arcade game, which gives it a stronger connection. And you know I'm such a nerd for that kind of shit. One thing I noticed about all of these tabletop games is how much more musical they are than the other Game & Watches. Aside from the typical bleeps and bloops, all of these games have a little theme song that plays with a short demo of the gameplay, and it also plays every time you get 100 points. Aside from that, all of the tabletop games carry over the same standard game elements from prior Game & Watches, such as 3 lives, clearing your misses at 300 points, or entering chance time if you reach 300 points without getting any misses. I'm super impressed with this version of Mario Cement Factory. It fixed the issues I had with the new widescreen version of the game, and with the cute visuals, musical additions, and color, this is definitely the definitive version of Mario Cement Factory. Oh what, did you forget about Junior? Well, Nintendo sure didn't, because this is the 4th Donkey Kong Jr. game they've created in less than a year. They just couldn't stop making these things.
You like Donkey Kong Jr.?
As far as Nintendo was concerned, Junior was as much of a mascot as Mario and Donkey Kong. The gameplay is what we've all come to expect from Donkey Kong Jr. You've got keys, birds, fruit, Mario being a dick, it's all here. You play as Junior and you gotta get the key over to Donkey Kong 4 times, after which the game loops and gets quicker. But this version does have its share of changes to the formula. The biggest difference are these balloons and umbrellas you have to navigate through to get to Donkey Kong. The umbrellas float down while the balloons float upwards. You also have to get the timing right when you're trying to put the key in Donkey Kong's lock because he won't quit flailing his fucking arms around. For God's sakes, if you don't stop, I'm just gonna let Mario keep you. The game also doesn't restart you from the beginning after you reach Donkey Kong. You have to travel all the way back to the beginning and get the key again, similar to Donkey Kong 2. But unlike Donkey Kong 2, there are multiple paths to get to and from Donkey Kong. Like with Mario Cement Factory, Donkey Kong Jr. is a much more musical game than it was before. Just like the arcade, Donkey Kong Jr. starts out with a bit of toccata and fugue, so Nintendo can reel in all those hardcore Bach-loving gamers out there. Also, every time you get onto the umbrellas or balloons, this song plays. Every single time. Yeah, it's charming and cute the first time, but it overstays its welcome real fast. I can only imagine the regret of parents who unwittingly bought this game for their children back when it came out. Theodore, if you don't shut that stupid game off, I fucking swear to Christ! Also returning here are nitpickers. Oh, excuse me. Fierce birds, as the manual calls them. Junior is attacked by fierce birds. Ride the umbrella when there are no birds with a coconut. Fierce bird is not a name. It's a description. That's why it's Donkey Kong Jr. and not Naked Monkey. And that's another thing. Why is Junior always naked in the Game & Watch games? One of the most iconic things about the original Donkey Kong Jr. arcade cabinet is his big dumb onesie that he's wearing all the time. It's so obvious. It's like the main thing about him. Where did that go? Why does R&D1 insist on making Junior a naked little monkey? In this game, it's even weirder because his hands and feet are not skin colored, so it's like he's wearing some kind of suit. It's a good thing that the art is so adorable because otherwise this would be terrifying. Anyways, Tabletop Donkey Kong Jr. has that classic gameplay we love, and it looks great. It's a solid entry into the Game & Watch line. Nintendo waited a full year to make another one, but we finally got a second Snoopy game. It's about time they gave our classic Beagle Boy another shot. So, 2 months after Donkey Kong Jr. and Mario Cement Factory, Snoopy was released as the third Tabletop Game & Watch. In our second outing, we control Snoopy hopping around on platforms as Schroeder plays music below. Apparently, he's loud as fuck, so you have to bounce back and forth and hit the notes coming from his piano with a hammer. ignoring the blatant absurdity of the physics of this. You need to prevent the notes from waking up Sleepy Woodstock or he'll start screaming at you. I also thought this would wake up Lucy and she'd come over and kick the shit out of Schroeder and his piano, but no. She just does that every time you reach 100 points for no reason. Why is Lucy such a dick?
Now, on to your physical faults. These slides will show your tendency toward fatness. Look at that stomach. Even your nose is fat.
I think Nintendo was using this game as an entry point for younger kids and the average consumer, because the game is very simple and really slow. It's the kind of game that's easy for anyone to just pick up and play. And that's exactly why it doesn't satisfy my insatiable gamer thirst. It just takes so long for the game to get to a place that's enjoyable, especially after playing all of the other Game & Watches. Game B is better, but even in Game B, I felt like I had to get to nearly 200 points before the game really started getting good. It's not a bad game, and I really love the art of all of the Peanuts characters. They look spot on, but I'm just too much of a god gamer for this normie shit. As a gamer, I think it's my duty, nay, my right, to have a massive problem with any game that's not tailored to me or my tastes. I think we can all agree there's just not enough room in this world for more than one type of game. Joking aside, this really isn't one I'm going to be coming back to very often. I mean, come on, Charlie Brown isn't even here. Or is he? He is. He's the alarm. But honestly, who is even going to know that? Because for the last time, nobody is going to use this as an alarm clock. It gets 4 Woodstocks. Great visuals, but not really for me. Now that Snoopy is out of the way, let's get down to the real Chad of things. And I do mean that Popeye is the 4th and final game of the Tabletop series, releasing 2 months after Snoopy. That's right, Snoopy wasn't the only cultural icon who made his way back to the Game & Watch. In this version, you once again control Popeye trying to save olive oil from Brutus. Wait, Brutus? I thought it was Bluto. Hold on. Okay. Brutus is just Bluto with less copyright complications, got it. So, you beat the shit out of Brutus until one of you knocks the other into the water. Occasionally, olive oil will kick some spinach down to you, and if you catch it at the right time, you immediately knock out Brutus, and the Popeye music plays. Like usual, the game loops afterwards, getting more difficult each time. In Game B, Brutus is quicker and a swordfish will occasionally jump up from below, adding an extra bit of difficulty. I really like this one, it feels like it came straight out of a Popeye cartoon. Like with all of these licensed games, R&D1 did a fantastic job with the character artwork, and the gameplay has got a nice quick pace letting you jump right in. It also has Sweet Pea as the alarm. So, after 4 months and 4 games, Nintendo discontinued the Tabletop Game & Watch line. Unfortunately, the sales of the Tabletop series never reached the heights Nintendo had hoped for. While Coleco had made millions selling mini Donkey Kong arcades, none of Nintendo's own mini arcades would sell even a quarter of that much. Which is a shame because I think these are really cool. It does make sense though. These were much more expensive and less portable than the previous Game & Watches, and North America was also experiencing the infamous video game market crash of 1983, meaning people just weren't buying video games anymore. Japan, however, saw no such crash, and Nintendo seemed to still feel that the color technique they had invented still had some juice left in it, because the same month they released their last tabletop game, they also released their first Panorama Series game. What about the games though? Well, not only did Nintendo reuse the color concept of the Tabletop series, but they just straight up reused most of the games as well. The first 3 Panorama Series games are Snoopy, Popeye, and Donkey Kong Jr. Maybe Nintendo had a bunch of LCDs left over, or maybe they just thought the games would sell better with a new panorama design, but either way, these are the exact same as the versions on Tabletop. No gameplay changes. The only difference is that these versions didn't have little joysticks, but instead used buttons or a D-pad. Since Nintendo reused 3 games from the Tabletop series, that means that Mario's Cement Factory is the only tabletop game that is truly unique, and even then there's still the new widescreen version. But sure enough, a few months later we got the first game released exclusively for the Panorama Series Game & Watch, Mario's Bombs Away. Or should I say, Mario in the Vietnam fucking War? What the fuck? Mario is literally in the military carrying bombs to another soldier while gorillas in the trees try to blow him up. Meanwhile, Mario and friends are throwing bombs up into the trees in order to kill those guys all at once. Whose idea was it to have the lighthearted cartoony setting of war? I thought Mario working manual labor in a straight-up factory was an odd choice, but this is on another level. So yeah, in this game you're controlling Mario, carrying bombs across the screen to another soldier. Meanwhile, in the trees, enemies attempt to light your bomb on fire. This fucker over here will also occasionally toss his cigar onto some fresh gasoline. Love that. Which can also light your bomb on fire. You need to navigate through this successfully or Mario's face will explode. And his friend will die. Now, this came out a few months after the Mario Bros. Arcade game, and that's the game where Mario and Luigi famously become plumbers. Of course, they don't explicitly say that this game takes place during the Vietnam War, but come on. Look at me and tell me that this is not the Vietnam War. So, my working story is that Mario and Luigi were working as plumbers when they got drafted. This also explains why Luigi isn't here. Luigi was famously part of the anti-war movement and was vocal about how much he hated the Nixon administration, so he dodged the draft. Some king shit. Anyway, get a load of this guy. I'm standing here like an idiot with a bomb in my outstretched arms while a man in a tree slowly lowers a flame to light the wick, and he's just taking his goddamn time. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here! Fuck! I saw that, you piece of shit! You get a point every time you move forward, and once you get to the end, your buddy will throw a bomb into the tree. Once you get 5 bombs into the trees, everyone is massacred and you get 15 points. Presumably, this is the canon ending where Mario kills a bunch of people. Despite the completely inappropriate tone of this game, the gameplay is actually quite fun. It's totally different from any of the other games in this series so far, and it's pretty challenging. I found myself wanting to play it again and again because of this unique gameplay. It's really fun. The alarm is a baboon. 3 months after Mario's Bombs Away, we get a third and final game in the Mickey Mouse trilogy on Game & Watch. Mickey Mouse. Oh man, come on, juggling again? There are so many goddamn juggling games on the Game & Watch. Well, what did they do to differentiate this juggling game from the others? It's got Mickey Mouse in it. Donald is here. He doesn't really do anything. I don't know, they're in a circus. The setting is kind of unique. Really, the main difference is that in this version you also have to dodge fiery batons or you lose a life. The game is fine, you can definitely kill some time with it, and if you haven't played the other juggling Game & Watches, I imagine it would be a lot better of an experience. I do like it more than Mickey Mouse on the widescreen series, but this game just feels unimaginative to me. The gameplay and setting are pretty generic. I mean, nothing about Mickey Mouse really says Circus to me. It also starts out slow and takes a while to ramp up, and I just feel like I've been here before. For what it is, it works. But I'd rather play Mickey and Donald on the multi-screen. This one gets 3 peats out of a possible 8 goofies.
So, no problems then, huh?
Speaking of juggling, we come to our final game in the Panorama series, Donkey Kong Circus, releasing almost a year later. Turns out, once Mario got back from war, he tracked down Donkey Kong fresh off of his greenhouse escapades with Stanley, and now has him performing circus tricks while dodging fireballs. Mario really went through a dark period in his early days, huh? As you could probably tell, Donkey Kong Circus is just Mickey Mouse. Now, allow me to ruin my credibility with these videos, but this game is so much better! I know, it's the exact same game. But first of all, this is the very first time you get to play as Donkey Kong himself. Before, he was always either the villain, damsel, damsel, villain, or damsel. This time the lovable oaf is the hero, I think. I also love that it looks like you're at the same construction site from the original Donkey Kong game. You've got the same fireball enemies, and instead of the circus ball, Donkey Kong is balancing on a barrel, cause, you know, he threw barrels in the first game. It's awesome! I know, it's completely shallow and subjective to prefer a game weighted solely on the visuals, but damn it if that's not a perfect description of me. In the end, it is just another juggling game. Nothing revolutionary. But I like this one. If you like the classic era of Donkey Kong and Mario, this one might appeal to you like it does for me. And there you have it, the Tabletop and Panorama Series. Once again, I have to praise R&D1's resourcefulness and creativity. The way they brought these two series to life through color using cheap and old technology is amazing. I love the design of the mini arcades, and I think it's amazing that they were able to condense this concept into a portable experience with the Panorama Series. None of the games really blew me away, except Mario's Bombs Away. But the quality of these ones is pretty consistently good. I didn't really have a bad time with any of them. However, by this point, Game & Watch sales were in decline. As I mentioned before, none of the tabletop sales reached more than 250,000, and the same goes for the Panorama series. In Japan, Nintendo released the Famicom soon after the Tabletop series began, meaning you could either play a single level of Donkey Kong Jr. as a Game & Watch, or you could just buy the entire game for the Famicom and have a near one-to-one experience as the arcade. In fact, Mickey Mouse and Donkey Kong Circus were never even released inside Japan. Still, I love seeing Mario and Donkey Kong's early adventures on Game & Watch, and these are really cool devices to experience firsthand. This week's subscriber shoutout goes to Icy Clatchet, our first Brit, for appreciating my British impression on my widescreen series video. You are far, far too kind. Thank you for watching my videos, Icy Clatchet, you rock! And that's gonna do it for this episode of Friday Night Games. Next time, for the sake of chronology, we're gonna take a little break from the Game & Watch so we can finally talk about one of the seminal games that defined Mario as we know him today, an all-time classic, Mario Bros. Make sure to subscribe because you're not going to want to miss it. Join me next time right here on Friday Night Games.